Welcome back to Four Sisters, where we will give you tips on self-care, self-awareness, self-confidence, and show you all the ways you can love yourself. So get ready to laugh, cuss, cry, and pray. Welcome back. We're at episode 11.
Yes, ma'am.
10 was hilarious. How was everyone week?
It's been pretty good. I can't complain.
Aww.
Me either.
I've had a good week. Feeling a little successful today.
I just want to be
blessed up.
Did you say blessed up? How was yours?
I said mine was good. I don't have any complaints.
I got no complaints either. I just want some cookout food. I'm ready. What you got for us, Danny?
So this week I am doing two different things. I have a rant and a resolution. So I'm going to start off with the rant, and you all can join me with this. So the rant I have is that people, in their ability to be ignorant, videotape people dying. So the thing that bothers me about it is, as human beings, we're so desensitized to death that we are out here on our iPhones and our Androids videotaping people in their last breaths. So specifically, the week before last, XXXTentacion, yes ma'am, I said his name right, amen. But XXXTentacion was videotaped in his last moments of life. People were literally in his face. You could hear him gurgle his last breath on the video. And my thought is, when someone's dying, the last thing as a human being that you should think about is taking out your iPhone X, cutting on the lock screen, and videotaping using your camera. First of all, why do you want that in your phone? That's the first question. Who wants somebody dying in their phone? You gonna get that back out any other time and watch it? You feeling sad? You just gonna watch somebody die? You having a good week? You just gonna be like, let me pull out this video XXX to triple X. We're just gonna call him triple X. It's taking too long to say his name. But we're just gonna take that back out at any time. You at the family reunion, you gonna show your friends? Like, when do you bring that back out? When it's on your phone. So then the second question is, if you have this on your phone, that means that you are more focused in videotaping it than helping that man. Did anybody perform CPR? It didn't matter if he was taking his last breath. You can always perform CPR. That's what they actually tell you in CPR class. Even if you've never taken CPR, you could have done something more than video recorded it.
Apply pressure to the wound.
Yeah, you could apply pressure to the wound. You could have consoled him. You could have talked to him. You could have prayed over that man. But you took your Android. And yes, your Android, and you videotaped that man instead of trying to pray and help. Now, when they had that Waffle House shooting, a lot of people were singing hymns. A lot of people, because people were dying in that Waffle House shooting. And people weren't videotaping everybody around there dying. They were singing hymns. They were, going up to people, praying with them, because they knew they were dying. But you and your Android is going to go into this situation and videotape this man die.
And while you were out with your phones, why you didn't record the niggas that shot him? Like, why wasn't that in your, in your thought of reference? You care so much about him. Right. You care so much about him. You're just going to let the killer get free, but you're going to record him dying? I just can't.
And the sad part about it is, like, their family has to see this. You get what I'm saying? Like, nobody wants to see their child or their uncle or their brother on social freaking media dying. Period. We've all had someone that's died that may be close to us and may not be close to us. Do you want to find out? Because I'm pretty sure the social media had it before their damn family knew that he was dead. Because they had to go identify the body and etc. They might not even known it was him. TMZ had it before he was even pronounced dead. Because he had to go to the hospital.
And think about this unborn child that he left behind. Like,
right.
That's going to be the legacy or the image that pops up. Like, that's my dad.
As soon as I Google my dad's name.
That's sad.
And so the scary part about it is that we're so desensitized to death. This morning I woke up and we were, excuse me, not we. I was by myself. But this morning I woke up and I literally got on to social media And Sean King, I follow Sean King on Twitter, and he has this video of, and I believe it's in Philadelphia, but I could be horribly wrong, this black man who was tasered by an officer. The officer said, stretch your legs out, stretch your arms out. But then the other officer was saying, stretch your legs out and cross your legs. So the guy's like, which one of these am I doing? So he was just like, I'm just going to do this because I don't know. They tased him anyway. And you could see this man being tased, falling over. People were recording it, talking the whole crap to the officers. Like, why? He ain't had nothing on him. He won't bother nobody. He wasn't a risk. You tased him anyway. And so, but I'm so desensitized that I just literally watched somebody be tased. And I was like, all right, so what's on the shade room? That's scary. Because the natural emotion is somebody's hurt, dying, in the process of death. You're supposed to be sad and upset, and, your heart's supposed to beat fast. You're supposed to have some somatic symptoms or something. And I was just like, well, let me go laugh and see what's on the shade room. So, that's my rant. Anybody want to?
It's just sad.
Yeah.
That this is like
life.
The way that the world is, like, everything's got to be captured on a cell phone. It's like, stop.
I'm gonna tell y'all something. One time when I was little, I went across like a memory book or something, and I think my mama had a picture of my grandma in her casket, and I was like, Mom, this kind of weird. Like, and I understand it from like that viewpoint of like, she looked beautiful and she was at rest and she was peaceful. But even back then, I was like, you ain't even really supposed to be out here seeing dead folks.
Yeah.
So now, fast forward how many years later, and we just out here looking at dead people all the time for funsies. I still can't wrap my head around it. Like, it's just not the way that things should be. Personally, I zoomed into, or I clicked the X video, not even necessarily knowing what I was seeing, and as soon as I realized what it was and they started zooming in, I was like, oh no, this ain't for me. And I still haven't seen that little junior boy, like, girl, nothing. I haven't seen it because I was just like, regardless of whether it's out there or not, I'm not going to subject myself to seeing that because it just doesn't sit right with me.
And the amount of times it's like shared by people.
Right.
Like, people posting it on Facebook or whatever, and they're sharing it. Like, oh, look at this. Like, and it's like, but why?
And the junior video, it bothered me so much before he even died.
Yeah.
The video from inside the convenience stores, the bodega is what I watched. Mm-hmm. And he runs in, and it's almost like he runs behind the counter. And they come in, and then, like, I kind of closed my eyes a little bit because I was like, I can't. It's like, okay. But, and then, like, pulling him out. He's, like, holding on to stuff. And I'm like, y'all saw that? And was like, so can you ring me up for this milk and these pack of cigarettes? Like, I would have been non-functional.
He came back, and they said that they ushered him back out.
Yeah. And he had been stabbed at that point.
Mm. And then I think even more then I'm blown away by the fact that, like, that's our impulse and that's our reaction, which, granted, was that video surveillance? Like, it wasn't like a person recording, right?
Yeah, that was video surveillance.
But
there were people that walked by in nurses' scrubs.
Crazy.
So you have to have at least a CNA.
But regardless of, like, the fact that, these videos are out there, people are taking these videos, I'm a little concerned with us because we real life be watching this. Like, we real life look at a caption, know we about to watch somebody die, and click it anyway. And I had to ask myself some real questions about that and be like, girl, you nosy, but this ain't even benefiting you. Like, you gonna be anxious, you gonna be up all night afterwards. Like, this ain't good for you.
Paranoid.
So even though you have this impulse and this itch to, like, know some information, it's not even worth it for your well-being. And I wish for other people's, like, sanity too, that they would be able to kind of, like, have that same restraint, because people have been, like, sick over that junior situation, like, and you don't have no other choice but be like, not only was he a kid, but, like, he was brutally murdered, and
on accident.
Have everything surrounding that situation is, like, documented on the internet in real time. Like, his parents and family, they're never going to be able to get away from this.
So to my resolution, and this sounds very crazy to go from this to something else. So I was reading on the Shade Room this morning that Fabulous won't get any time for the assault of Emily B. And so I'm like, whatever. He's a first-time offender. There's always first-time offenders program. So, okay, cool. I don't care if you beat her. I'm going to just throw that out there. I don't care. It ain't the first time. She's okay with it, so I can't do nothing but be okay with it myself. I can't want something more for you than you want for yourself. So I'm okay with it if you're okay with it. If you pop your 2 teeth out, your bottom 2 teeth out next, if you go back, that's on you. That's your life. The thing that bothers me the most is every time I think of that video, I think about them kids crying in the background. Mm. You can hear those kids seeing the same thing we seeing because it's surveillance. So we're watching it based off the house cameras. They're seeing this in real life. Really? And I wish, here's my resolution. Women, if you want to stay with that man, do not subject your innocent kids to watch you enter in a domestically violent situation. If you want to, as an adult, with your functioning mind and your rationale, say, I love him more than life itself, so I'm going to stay with him, we're going to ride it out. Take your kids out of it. Give your kids to your grandma, give them to your auntie. I don't care if you give them to your neighbor. Give them to a trusted adult. Do not subject them because people do not realize you made this decision for yourself, but it will impact your kids for the rest of their life. Especially in just that one video where you see them crying. You hear them crying. Don't subject. My resolution is women, men, if you're in a domestic violence relationship, do not subject your kids to that. Verbal, emotional, physical. Don't subject your kids to it. Period. You made that decision for yourself. Don't make it for your kids.
That was too deep to unravel.
I mean, that's true.
That's true. I mean, being that we're all trauma therapists for children, we see it day in and day out.
And it leaves your kids confused.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amongst other things.
I mean, you don't understand how many things, it's the generational cycle. Now you are subjecting your kids to seeing something and they normalize it. And then they think it's normal to do the same thing to their significant other. They don't have a foundation of what love is. They don't have a foundation of what true love is. Not even just love like, I love you, girl. But like true love, like I'm a provider. I'm your protector. I'm the head of the household. Like you're not even showing them that. Because now you're showing them that the head of the household has the right to abuse whoever it is that they want to abuse. So my thought process is this. It bothers me knowing what I know about domestic violence and how it impacts people, adults who went through it when they were kids, to see that that's one of the struggles in African-American community. I can't speak for nobody else's community but ours. It's a struggle because we see it, we normalize it. Daddy and mommy argue all the time. Daddy and mommy throw stuff all the time. Mom got a black eye. Daddy got a, busted lip, whatever it may be. And it's like, do you see how far this is going to go? This is another 100 years you're putting into the world of drama and chaos. So, my resolution, give your kids to somebody else. Emily, if you find your teeth getting knocked out, okay, you got money to get new ones. You got 2 better front teeth than I do at this point. So keep it moving. But don't put your kids through that crap.
Find your self-worth.
And if you ain't got it, still get your kids to somebody who do. Jeez, because we can't, listen, she's grown. Can't nobody tell her nothing. She all over the Shade Room posting with her flat tummy tea suckers and all the other stupid stuff. She's fine. Mentally she ain't, but she's fine. The kids got to see this on social media. They got to hear their own cries on social media. Like, it's too much. But that's my resolution.
I'm glad I didn't see that video. Lord, no. I wouldn't have been no more good for the beat.
I did see that one. And not only, I think the kids crying in the background was hard to hear. And then also just seeing how terrified, like she literally was terrified of him in that video. And I was like, I hate it. Like, I just hate the fact that she had to be in that situation. I hate the fact that, I don't know, like, I hate the fact that it's that serious for people to, like, we just gotta beat on people. Like, I don't know. It bothered me.
This was, whatever year that Chris Brown beat physically assaulted Rihanna. And this was whatever year that was. I don't know, early 2000s. Everybody was in the chaos. Everybody was canceling Chris Brown. He's the worst. He's this. Fabulous did it, and literally 2 weeks later, everybody was at his concert. I'm like what we're doing here? He's still posting on Shade Room. People are like, Fabulous ain't that bad. She want to stay. So what we gonna do about it? We gonna still pump his albums, or his mixtapes. And it just bothers me because at one point I felt like we were all okay with canceling somebody for something so grotesque. Like when that football player dragged his girlfriend out of the elevator after he beat the brakes off of her. I felt like we all canceled him. NFL canceled him. We canceled him. We ain't seen him since. She went on Good Morning America we married. We good. We were we still cancel. We canceling you just because you with him.
I just think it's a sad situation because it's the only way that people learn from their poor decisions or their negative decisions is by having some kind of consequence. And she's not giving him any consequences by continuing to be with him. He's not getting any consequences from the criminal justice system. And so unfortunately, he probably is going to continue this cycle of behavior and probably in some way feels like it's okay. And that bothers me. Outside of canceling him or whatever the case may be, whether his career is successful or not, my bigger issue was he doesn't know how to manage his anger. He doesn't know how to handle conflict in his relationships. He doesn't know how to treat his partner. And that's a bigger issue in itself besides, FABOLOUS on the track.
But we're so desensitized that we don't even see domestic violence.
Niggas still can't spell fabulous for real because of him.
That ain't how you spell. Useless. Okay. But I think the concern I have is, because I had to. F-A-B.
I hate you.
Okay. Okay. But it is one of those, situations where it's just the resolution. Women, you are an adult. You can go through whatever it is you want to go through. You've had friends. You've had people that you know personally that are going through it. You may be going through it. And until you decide that you're going to get help, that's fine. You have the right to do what it is that is in your will. I can't change your will. I can't force you to go get help. But guess what I won't do? I won't let your kids who are nothing to do with you and him go through that. Because I call the people on you real quick.
And if you have family members that you know of that are in these situations, and I know it's hard to have that conversation with people. It's hard to, you can't tell people how to live their lives. But when you're trying to decide whether you're going to make a report or whether you're going to get somebody else involved, think about those children and the quality of life that they're going to have as a result of growing up in this household.
Because people are quick to be like, I'm minding my business. Okay. And then when their child grow up and decide they want to whoop your tail because they understand that, in order to get what I want, I have to whoop on you. Don't say that. Mm-hmm. Please don't. But that's it. Sad we made it so sad, but I might turn up a little later in this episode. We'll see.
I don't know.
Doubt it. Okay, what you got for us?
Sorry.
Well, as Miss Danny introduced, we're going to be scaling on this whole topic of trauma. It's a very deep topic, so we're just going to give some of the basics of what trauma is, some of the resiliency factors, and things that we see with trauma. Not necessarily what we see, but just things to look out for. So what is trauma? Trauma is an event or a series of events that involve fear or threat, whether it's for you or someone else. So your role doesn't just have to be, you have to be the victim. You can observe it, you can learn about it. Almost like Danny was saying, watching these videos can be a trauma experience. Trauma can affect the whole body, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. It goes deep. Man, this is tough. Types of traumatic events. It can be sexual abuse, sexual assault, physical abuse, physical assault, domestic violence, serious injury like accidents or something. Illness, like in and out of hospital, medical concerns can cause it to turn into some type of traumatic experience. Community violence, emotional, verbal abuse. That one's not touched on enough, in my opinion. The one that's very noticeable and everyone talks about when it comes to certain diagnoses is when it comes down to the military combat and war. That's when people think trauma, they think war. Neglect, when your needs aren't met. People don't understand when your basic needs aren't met. It's almost a sense of fighting. It's a fear. It's a fear that comes about when your needs aren't met. Abandonment, that one too, it doesn't get enough power for what it does to people, especially transition from childhood to adulthood. Caregiver impairment, that can be mental health concerns. A caregiver could have committed suicide, substance abuse issues, sudden violent death of a loved one, almost like what Danny was saying with extentacion. That was a violent death, and they have to relive that moment, not necessarily just from pictures, but from video. And it sounded like sound was on there. I didn't hear it, don't want to hear it, but it sounded like there was a lot of factors there. Natural disaster like hurricane, tornadoes, fires, flood, school violence like bullying, school shooting. The list goes on for days. Sometimes people don't understand that trauma can occur in like one of the following. Like it can be a single event. It can be a reoccurring event. So when you think of a child growing up in a physically abusive household or domestic violence or even sexual abuse, like those are some of the common ones. It probably, if it's in the household and it's a loved one, it's going to reoccur. Like it's going to happen probably more than once. Intergenerational trauma, mama's, granddaddy's, uncles, brothers. Complex trauma, meaning more than one type of trauma. So you can have a sexual abuse, physical abuse, all in turn around and have a domestic violence situation as you're growing up. So those are the different types of trauma that can occur. The impacts of trauma. So many times after experiencing a traumatic event, your brain becomes overprotective and it converts to what we call here in the clinical world is in survival mode. Like it literally turns into survival mode. So you turn into the fight. So you're fighting. You're either gonna, if something reminds you of that event or something like triggers a memory, you're gonna respond in the way you probably responded in the initial incident. So you're either gonna fight, flight, or freeze. So your brain is gonna do one of those three things. And when you don't know what's going on and even what's triggering it, that can be frightening in itself. PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, signs and symptoms. Sometimes as a result of a traumatic experience, not always, one may develop what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. Most people, when you hear PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, they think the Army. But you got to understand why those people got post-traumatic stress disorder. It was a traumatic experience to watch people die, to be in the line of fire. So in a sense, a civilian can experience that here walking on a regular everyday life. Some of the signs of it is you can look for hyperarousal. So that's easily startled, nervousness, jumpiness. You can have re-experiencing the event. So flashback, intrusive images, dreams and nightmares, dissociation, avoidance and withdrawal is one. So less pleasure in things you once enjoyed. Avoid people, places, or things that trigger memories of the trauma or the traumas. Isolated or withdrawn from family and friends. So you start to pull away from loved ones. And sometimes when childhood trauma unaddressed goes unresolved, it can transition into childhood. So just because you grow up and you're out of that situation and you don't deal with what happened, it don't just go away. And another thing, negative thoughts and uncomfortable emotions can also be a result of a traumatic experience, and you may be experiencing PTSD as well. So don't forget those things. However, not everyone who experienced a traumatic event develops post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's because they probably have resiliency factors into play. And that refers to the ability to cope successfully despite significant change or adversity. Protective factors supports increase of the likelihood of a person developing the resilience. So protective factors can be behavioral or emotional. So when you think behavioral, so good self-care, healthy boundaries, using positive coping mechanisms and relaxation skills, that's just to name some. That's not all of them. Environmental protective factors may include reliable support system, whether it's family or friends. Basic needs met, maybe stable housing, making sure all of the basic needs are met. And a safe community is some of the environmental protective factors that may help you cope with that traumatic experience. So everyone that goes through a traumatic experience does not develop post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of it. Treatment. I can go on and on about treatment. But so when it comes down to treatment, there are so many different modules or modalities that target trauma in itself. So my advice would be to go and see a therapist, get an assessment done, talk about all your experiences, all the symptoms that you are currently experiencing or been experiencing, and follow the recommendations of what that therapist is recommending. Or even do a little bit of research before even going to the therapist's office and kind of sort of see what you might benefit from and how you can get that service as well. Because you're the expert on you and they're the expert on the knowledge of the treatment module. So they'll be able to help guide you, but you got to be able to point them in the right direction as well. Mm-hmm. So anything you guys want to add? And because that was just the tip of the iceberg when we talk about trauma. That was just a very quick synopsis.
Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't realize when it comes to PTSD and dealing with trauma and all those kinds of things, I will say even me as a therapist didn't realize all the things that were considered to be trauma and all of the things that were associated with trauma, all the things that were like associated with the diagnosis that weren't just like real, actual, normal things. For instance, dissociation. That's like either feeling like you're seeing yourself from outside of your body. So, just kind of not feeling attached to yourself. Or other times it could be like feeling like stuff isn't real, like you're in a dream and stuff like that. And so many times I have clients come into my office and they're like, oh, that's a part of that? Like they just didn't know. Mm-hmm. Or when it comes to like the anxiety and depression piece that come along with that negative thoughts and emotions, like they were like, oh, well, I just thought that I was depressed. And it's like, I just thought that I've been depressed for the past 6 years. I didn't associate it with this thing that happened. But it's like it's important for you to realize that like that thing happened and now it's changed not only the way you view yourself, but the way you view the world and the way you view other people. So, spend a little bit of time. I hope y'all rewind and take some notes and listen to Kay all over again. Send us some questions if y'all have any other, thoughts or questions about trauma, because it's important stuff to know. And there probably are people around you that have gone through some stuff and are showing these symptoms and you don't even know what you're looking at, or they don't even know what they're experiencing. And it's really important for us to start noticing and start, having these conversations with our family members and friends before we get to, a situation where it's a little too far gone or before it's turned into like some kind of severe mental illness.
Great job, okay. Thanks. Moving on to Sister Circle. Don't take us too deep.
Okay, so first of all, since I'm not asking any questions about you guys or your experiences. I just really felt like I thought that it would be really important for us to kind of talk more about trauma and help people understand trauma, since we all are 4 licensed therapists who specialize in treating those who've experienced trauma. So I've got a few questions related to the topic. First question. People are quick to say, oh, that doesn't bother me anymore, or that ain't that big of a deal. I'm over that. I dealt with it. Leave the past in the past. where y'all think that comes from?
Avoidance. I think that when you really don't want to have to relive something that was scary or made you sad or upset or whatever the feeling associated with it, you avoid it at all costs. And I think that, from most of the interactions I've had with clients that, come in there like, oh, I'm good. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You're not. But when you get there, let me know. And I keep moving.
I think it also comes from other people saying, get over it, you all right.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've gotten to the point to so much that everybody was like, everybody done had something like that happen or whatever, that they just like, well, maybe I am good. Maybe I ain't going to worry about it no more. So I think it's other people telling them that you got to be okay. So, yeah.
Or even people telling them that it's not that big of a deal, or being like, oh, this thing just happened to you? Man, I've been dealing with stuff like that my whole life.
Right.
And so making them feel like, this is something that is normal. Sometimes people normalize the fact that they've experienced trauma because the people around them make it seem like it's normal. I ain't going to say it's not, but you still got to address the emotions and how it's changed you.
I would add, people don't, sometimes, I can understand, sometimes addressing the actual trauma is more difficult and scarier than actually the trauma itself. And all those things that you're dealing with on the inside of you. And you feel like it's safer on the inside than the outside because you feel like you have control of what's going on and how it is, but it's bumbling up. And it's going to be a bunch of foolishness after a while to behaviors that you don't have control of on the outside. Like, to tell people, it's like that James and the Giant Peach. Like, at one point, he was holding that peach, and at some point, he was living inside of it.
Never saw that.
Really?
Yeah, never saw that. Don't even get the reference.
And you know what? I think that sometimes people have gone through these scary or traumatic experiences and they've done everything that they know to do to get over it. And so in their mind, like, they're functioning. They're not, they haven't been hospitalized yet. Nobody's, recognizing that they're having all these feelings on the inside. Nobody's really noticing that anything is different with them. And so if they've been able to manage and function as normal, quote unquote, with nobody realizing it, and they've gone through this thing, why would you think that you need to do more to deal with it? It's like, what I'm doing right now works. And from that viewpoint, I can get it. Like, I've been doing well all this time. That's what people say all the time, especially adults. I'm 49 years old. I've been doing well all this time.
Have you?
Right. And it's like, but really, have you though? When you think about the life that you're living and the life that you could live, like, have you really dealt with this thing? So what would y'all say to people who are normalizing their trauma?
Seek help. Or at least, like, and you may have had enough resiliency factors around you or protective factors around you that you did build a sense of resilience and you did not develop a mental illness as a result of it. But I would say go and get a consultation. Like, there's nothing wrong with going to get a consultation and making sure. Preventative care is just as important as going as when the symptoms are blown out of proportion.
Right.
So why not? If you know you've experienced these things and you're listening, you're like, well, I've had that before. You can check this off of the list. Go and get some additional assistance to make sure.
And stop asking your friends. And stop doing BuzzFeed quizzes.
And people that are not licensed.
Yeah, like, stop trying to go.
Don't go to WebMD.
Oh,
Jesus.
I have so many people come up to me and literally will be like, I took this quiz to see if I got schizophrenia. Shut up! That's what I want to say. That's what happens in my mind. I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
She doesn't.
If you thought,
I don't do that in actual practice.
If you thought that you had it, then why not ask a professional?
Yeah, like, what quiz online? First of all, it's a generic quiz, so it doesn't know person by person. It's giving you some generic symptoms. It's not going to tell you something that's specific to you.
And Lord knows if you're using these Facebook quizzes, please stop.
But people normalize it because they talking to the wrong people. Like Kay said, get an assessment. Talk to somebody that is a professional who's trained to see you based off of your symptoms. Period. Up in their cosmetology magazine doing quizzes. It made me sick. BuzzFeed. This BuzzFeed quiz. Yeah, because I literally had a client come up to me was like, I did a quiz to see if I was schizophrenic.
What was that quiz?
I said, girl, I've been your whole therapist for like 3 years. Like, what are we doing here? You never want to ask me that? I'm literally here, raising my hand.
You pay me every week.
Yeah, but no, she did a quiz because I kept telling her she didn't have it, and she found that one quiz that was like, but here I do got it. And it's just okay. Well, how about this? Who made the quiz? Who's the quiz by? What is the quiz based off of? Okay, until you get those answers, shut up. I'm tired.
Danny, I had a few people that say they would love to sit in your office. No, they really do. I've had a few people to say that.
I don't tell people to shut up.
I know you don't, but you're very stern.
Yeah, because it's just
very.
You don't know who the quiz made by. You just clicking some buttons. Half the time you ain't clicking it because it's the truth. You really gonna click it because you're like, I really want to prove I got schizophrenia.
Right.
Cut it out.
I didn't realize it until I think you or Sash brought it up the other day that we all in the offices, like we can cohabitate around each other and be great, but we have such different styles inside of the office, but we get the same points across. The same passion is there.
Yeah. I don't tolerate ignorance too well. And it's not ignorance because of, it's not like unwillful ignorance. It's like willful ignorance. No, I said that backwards. It's not willful ignorance. You're not doing it on purpose. You truly want to explain what is wrong. You feel like there is seriously something wrong, but you want to skip to the end and get the answer versus doing the work.
Right.
If you want to skip to the end, you want me to tell you, yeah, you schizophrenic. Bye. I don't need to see you no more because you want the answer. You don't want the work. You don't want the help.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you want to do this quiz so you can bypass all these tough decisions and frustrations and, reflections and just get to the answer. So here's your answer. You're schizophrenic. They're gone.
I had a client, it was so amazing. I'm going to start using that phrase because it dawned on me like, that's true. She came in, she told me I messed up this week, but this week I'm ready to actively participate in my treatment. But I was like, that makes sense. And when you have that mindset, you will probably do much better in treatment.
Because you're cheating yourself. You are coming here every week to lollygag. You could do that at the crib. You could do that at the mall. Crabtree got lollygaggers. They got professional lollygaggers walking every morning. They old people. Old people that be walking around with their tennis shoes on. But the thing,
what is we doing?
But what I'm saying is, you come here because there's a reason.
Yeah.
You don't just come to therapy for just like, there's nothing going on. There's a reason you came. And you have to explore that in order to get better. Not just get an answer so you can be like, all right, y'all, I got, bipolar, I'm out. Give me my meds. Like, you just can't do it that way.
Touch your soul.
All right, so for people who are older, their trauma happened a while ago and they have dealt with it already, quote unquote. How might that be impacting their life? May not necessarily be PTSD at this point. What might that look like?
A lot of things that I see is inability to form healthy relationships, whether it's intimate relationship, friendships, boundaries with families, and things like that. So the whole aspect of healthy relationships, trust is a big theme that I see a lot of. Those are the two big ones I see.
Be like, I don't fool people.
Yeah.
Can't stand people.
Well, why don't you fool?
I don't do with girls.
Can't trust people.
Not knowing that it was 5 girls that jumped you in the middle of the street. And they ended up being your best friends.
Mm-hmm. That's deep.
What?
Shut up.
You said what?
No. Trauma impacts other people's lives. Specifically, one, like I've already said, avoidance. Avoidance isn't just something where you avoid just your trauma. You avoid people, places, things, situations regarding the trauma. So you don't go back to, Joe Louis Ave because that's where, the trauma happened. You don't go back to, Philadelphia because, you Will Smith and that's where you were born and raised.
What in the world?
That was trauma.
That was worse in my scenario.
He ran from Philadelphia when he was born and raised.
Girl, continue. Oh my my God.
You gotta stop.
But either or, I think people don't realize that, you don't hang out with these people, you don't go to these situations, these places, or, hang with these people just for the simple fact that it reminds you of the trauma. And because you haven't dealt with it and you're avoiding it, you avoid the things related to it. And it's like, you can't enjoy your life when you are missing out on so many things that are a part of your life. Like a lot of people in Joe Louis didn't do anything to you. A lot of people in West Philadelphia, where you were born and raised, didn't do anything to you. But
I'm gonna segue. Also, they avoid the emotions associated with the situation. So, maybe he was really scared in West Philadelphia, where he was born and raised. And so now, anytime he's scared, he's avoiding that. He's trying to replace that with some other feeling that's more comfortable for him, or something like that.
Right. And okay.
No, I was gonna say, I think also too, you see people just outwardly just misbehaving, or they're extremely angry or extremely bitter about things. But I think it's probably because they have their walls up and they don't want to be touched or don't want to be bothered by anybody. So the exterior is like, I'm doing this, and it's really a way of protecting themselves. But, they don't want to really deal with what's going on, so they push people away.
Don't want to be vulnerable anymore. Because 9 times out of 10, if you were in any kind of traumatic situation, you were in a situation where either you felt helpless or out of control or something like that.
Fear.
And so you're going to try not to feel those things again. One thing I will say is you see a bunch of people who will, clean their house up 47 times. But you better put a coaster on that thing. And it's like, in the grander scheme of things, having a ring on your table ain't that big of a deal. But you just got to control stuff because it makes you feel better about the things that you've gone through. A lot of times people, how I see it manifest is like people are just control freaks or they're real perfectionists and stuff. And it's like that came from somewhere. People that are super duper anxious. And it's like, I've always been like this. But then when you start asking some real detailed questions, they take that anxiety back to, oh, dang, it started around this.
I think also one of the sad things is people's trauma manifests in substance use. I think that a lot of people are like, oh, I like to smoke because I like to smoke. Okay, that makes sense. But you're smoking because you are running from something. Nobody just smokes because they want to have fun. Yeah, you smoke because you want to have fun at first. And then you connect to the feeling. And then the feeling replaces the pain. And then the pain is something that you don't want to have anymore. So you continue to eliminate the pain. That's how it goes from being something that's fun to an unbreakable habit. Or something that, causes you to, lose your family, lose your friends, lose your situation, whether it's work, etc. So people self-medicate because they don't want to deal with the pain of trauma. And then they walk around and they're just like, oh, everything's great because I'm high. You're not even experiencing life.
And then it's crazy because it's so normal to use substances, especially in the hood. Everybody in the hood is smoking, drinking, getting high on the weekends. And so
Weekdays.
Yeah, too. It's like everybody, it's a turn up all the time. It's a lituation all the time. And it's so normal. But what you're not realizing is that y'all all are self-medicating. It's so normal because everybody is trying to run from the same stuff. And you all have fun together because y'all all relate, all have gone through the same kind of situations. And yeah, it's normal for everybody in your neighborhood to have experienced trauma. And so that's how y'all all are dealing with it. But just because it's normal doesn't mean that it's healthy, doesn't mean that it's benefiting you in the long run. So that justification of oh, well, this is normal. Everybody from my block do this. It's like, what does that say about everybody from your block?
And one of the things about trauma is that you get trauma from living in a high crime, high gang, high trafficking neighborhood. So even if it's you don't even see that as an issue, it is something where it's okay, the paranoia that comes with living in a neighborhood where you don't know where there'll be a drive-by or a shootout or someone gets killed at the corner store or the bodega or wherever. That is an extreme paranoia, and that fear is what causes you to have traumatic symptoms because it changes the way the brain develops and the way the brain processes.
That is a word. So that intellectual piece is deep.
True. All right, so what's the difference between trauma and stress?
Well, trauma is developed from stress. It's just an unhealthy level of stress. stress manifests itself in your brain in 3 different key parts. So when you think about normal stress, sometimes causes your brain to process things, or you may have irrational thoughts, or you may, shut down or etc. But to me, trauma is a level above stress, where trauma is my fight, flight, or freeze is impacted. My ability to see what's rational and even understand it not being rational. Like a lot of things about perception, etc. It's just like a heightened version of stress. But stress is the catalyst. Unhealthy stress is the catalyst for trauma. So it's one has to happen first. But it's like the healthy version. Because you can have healthy stress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, how much money am I getting paid on Friday? Like, that's a healthy stress because you're still getting paid. But then it's like, unhealthy stress is like, is daddy going to come home and beat mom? Like, that's an unhealthy stress.
Right.
That stress induces paranoia and fear, etc.
She wrapped that up real nice.
Yeah. What therapy methods do you guys use to treat trauma?
I am NC trained or rostered. How do we say it? NC rostered in trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a specific modality that is utilized to treat children who have been diagnosed with a trauma disorder from ages 5 up into 17. It's the age, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I'm learning cognitive processing therapy, which is the therapy modality that's utilized for adults. So I'm in the learning stages of that. Y'all might be further than I am.
Well, actually, brief therapy strategies like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, treats trauma. Because it teaches you, how to process unwanted or whatever the word is, thoughts, thinking errors. So I actually do cognitive processing therapy, which is different than cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive processing therapy is trauma work for adults. It processes core beliefs and stuck points and things that have you still stuck in your trauma. The belief of cognitive processing therapy is that you don't have to talk about the therapy in order to get past the therapy. You just have to discuss what you're still bothered by, what you're still stuck on, and what core beliefs you develop based off of the things you're stuck on.
Trauma to get past the trauma.
What?
You ain't gotta talk about the trauma to get past the trauma.
You don't have to talk about the actual traumatic event. Where TFCBT, which is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, you have to talk about the actual event. And you have to go into, what you saw, what you felt, what you smelled, what you tasted, etc. Like, you go into all of those things. You engage all your senses in order to bring back those memories, which could be suppressed or not. Which is a lot worse. Cognitive processing therapy, to me, is a lot better because a lot of people don't want to have to relive stuff in order to get past it. It is just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's done in children because they do have such a hard time organizing thoughts and memories and those sorts of things. So it's an organizational piece. But one thing that we learned when we learned about cognitive processing therapy is that for adults especially, that's not necessary all the time in order for you to get over trauma.
I'm trained in TFCBT, but I'm also rostering in child and parent psychotherapy, which is a trauma model for birth to ages 5. And it's working with the child and their parent or caregiver in a play type therapy to focus on the trauma. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll talk about exactly what happens. Oftentimes I'm looking to see themes of play and processing with both the caregiver and the child about what it means and, and give them feelings for whatever they can't express.
Cool beans. I'm rostered in TFCBT and CPT, but I also am rostered in a group therapy model called Sparks, which is structured psychotherapy for adolescents responding to chronic stress. And it's just a 16-week group where I'm working with kids 12 to 21, teaching them different methods for how to incorporate mindfulness skills into managing their stress and helping them learn conflict resolution skills for kind of ongoing management of their relationships with people, since that is one of the things that's heavily affected by trauma. Pretty cool model. And then there are also other trauma therapy models that we aren't trained in, like, EMDR and those sorts of things. Get your Googles on. If you want to talk about your trauma, the models are out there. If somebody were considering working on their trauma, what would be your advice?
Be ready to do the work. Sometimes it's hard treating a wound. It can be painful, but hopefully after you get the treatment, the intensity of the actual trauma or revisiting you won't be as frequent. It won't be as intense. Not saying that you will be healed or everything will be perfect, but the ability to have some skills into play to utilize when those things start to happen to you or you start to experience those things will help you to get past that event faster than you're currently probably able to do that now. Mm-hmm. Or not suppress it and actually deal with the natural emotions that are actually coming out.
Yep,
I agree.
I would definitely say understand what the stages of change are. Before you walk into my office, I want you to look at the 5 stages of change. It's 5 stages.
Or listen to episode 8? Was it 8?
I don't remember.
8, 9. Going back.
Episodes. Go backwards and figure out which episode we talked about the stages of change. There's 5 of them. If you are in pre-contemplation and you're starting therapy, you set yourself up for failure. And the reason why I say that is because you are slightly aware that you have a problem. There's slightly an issue. There's slightly something going on, but you're not committed to it. And then you come into my office expecting me to put in 75 and you give me 25. So I will say, be aware of what stage of change you're in. Understand what you're investing in. You're not doing this because it's going to be some short-term fix. This is a lifelong process. This is a journey in most people's eyes. So if you're in this to just get the quick fix, it ain't going to work like that. You may be in therapy for 6, 9, 12, depending on how complex the trauma and how serious the symptoms for a long time. And if you are not ready for that type of commitment, then don't start it right now. Because all you're going to do is stop and then be like, well, it didn't work, so I ain't going to ever do it again. No, it didn't work. Why? Because you didn't want to commit. You didn't want to do the work. Mm-hmm. Commitment. 5 stages of change.
And I will say this for if you are parents and you're sending your kids to therapy, it's always good to remember that oftentimes behaviors and things like that, it gets worse before it gets better, because now we're relearning and doing learning different ways to manage the behaviors, and sometimes it's really difficult for kids to understand that. But it doesn't mean that the therapy is not working or, my child is not going to get better. So just stick with it.
Because anybody is going to bucket change. Mm-hmm. We bucket change and we're adults. Also, piggybacking on that, Cici, if you're going to bring your kids to therapy because they have some behavior that you want them to change, please know that you can't just drop them off and not engage in their treatment too. Right. You are very important in their life, which means you're also going to be very important in their therapy treatment, especially up to a certain age. And so make yourself available. Try to learn just as they're learning and, get some parenting skills to go along with all the things that they're working on so that y'all have a successful home. You can't just come fix your kid. And I think the only thing I would say as far as anybody that's considering therapy would be, at the end of the day, most things that you have to do in your life require some kind of mental effort. If you decide that you want to make any kind of change, you've got to have your mind and your thoughts together in order for you to get yourself over obstacles and hurdles, even if they're every day. And so if you are interested in training your brain to overcome obstacles, go to therapy. If not, then, keep contemplating it and come when you really are ready to work on understanding your logic and the way your brain works. All right, ladies, that was all I have. What you got, Cici? I did, but I'm not going to ask you.
No. Well, we've been talking about trauma and oftentimes not only the mental and our physical is affected by it, but it's also affected by our spiritual. And so I just wanted to give tips to those who go to church and what they can do when they see trauma at church. So I'm speaking to all of the pastors, the first ladies, the deacons, the mothers, the ushers, all of them. Anybody who has a role at church. Because oftentimes, especially with the African American culture, the first thing we do before we even go to a therapist is go to the church. We're like, well, maybe the pastor can do something about it. So we see a lot of that in church. So what to do, first thing you have to do is to expect it. Trauma is everywhere, and we can't run from it, especially this day and age with so much going on. So just expect that maybe the person that you sit on the pew with every Sunday has some form of trauma. The second thing is to prepare for it. I was speaking somewhere else the other day, and I was just saying it would be nice to have some sort of trained professional on the administrative staff at church. That way somebody who has a training in trauma can be there and be prepared for if somebody comes and wants to talk. The next thing is you have to look for it. Oftentimes we are in church and, we may see some people who it seems like there's always conflict, or they're always trying to get attention, or they're always, causing a scene at church, but we don't know if they've had some sort of trauma and this is their outward behavior. I know oftentimes there's, side comments in church where, ooh, she looking like, she wants to steer everybody mad, but you don't know what she's been through, and her actions are being manifested from the things that she's gone through. So don't be so quick to judge, but look at some of these things and recognize like, hey, it might be a little bit more deeper than what you're seeing. The other thing is don't run from it. Press into that person. Go ask them, hey, what's going on? Do you want to talk about anything? Say more than just, I'm going to pray for you. Say more than you just need to pray about it. Sit down and have a conversation with somebody. Because oftentimes they may really want to talk to somebody and they just don't know how to go about it. So don't let them just talk to them. The next thing is to develop a plan. So if that means you're going to the pastor and the pastor is like, hey, let's schedule an appointment so that we can talk about some things, you all work together. And if he is able to, help deal with the situation, if he's trained to do that, then go about it that way. If he's not trained, allow him to help find a trained professional for you. And then oftentimes the last thing is follow up. If you have referred them out to somebody to see, professionally, if you're not able to deal with that, don't just let it be that. Go back and follow up to make sure they're seeing that person. Go with them if you need to. I think a lot of times we don't want to support what's going on. So I think that is how we can help people at church. There's a lot of people who go to church who've experienced a lot of different things. And the only thing that they've been taught is to pray about it. But we know that there can be more help. So that's my little sprinkle.
It's true.
That's a good one. Well, thank you for listening this week. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Four Sisters Podcast. We're also on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube,
Spreaker, and iHeartRadio.
So like, comment, share. Hopefully you get something from this. We try to merge fun into seriousness. So hopefully this wasn't too serious for you. But if it is, then maybe you need to reflect and see if there's something that you need to take from this and actually implement.
And we're adding a segment onto the podcast in the next few episodes of questions, or what do we name it?
Help a sister out.
Help a sister out. So you're able to send your questions anonymously to get some feedback from four professionals. Mm-hmm. Not saying that we know it all, but we'll do our best to give you support around it. And we're not afraid to tell you we don't have the answer, but we're okay with giving you resources where you can get the answer from.
We're not giving you therapy.
Not at all.
We're just giving you...
Write in and get your therapy. This is write in if you have some questions, short. quick things.
All right. Thank you guys for listening.
Have a
Bye.
great week.
Bye.